I struggle with the labeling of certain aspects of mental health. So many people will be like, "Hey, I'm ADHD, or I'm OCD, or I'm depressed," and I think a healthy man, and I have my bias, between the age of 20 and like 35, these things that are labeled those things, I think we all go through. I think all healthy men go through.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. Continue, sorry.
No. So, and I get concern's not the right word. Maybe defensive is a better word. When some of these things are named and given life, but they're just ideas, I get concerned that people will become attached to them and carry them with them their whole life. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's something that I wrestle with a lot. And I wrestle with that, and I kind of have two perspectives, one on each side of the equation. And that's kind of how I like to look at all of these kind of questions. The first is with that kind of, I think that all mental health and mental health labels exist on a spectrum. And you're exactly right. I think we can all exhibit characteristics that adhere to, that are in line with those kind of, let's call it diagnoses, if you will. Particularly young men as well, like with ADHD, for example. I also think that there is a lot to be said and a lot of research that needs to be done into personality and the way that personality difference can potentially lead itself to exhibiting characteristics that could become pathologized even when they aren't, if that makes sense. So
Yep.
I find personality psych fascinating. It's my favorite sector of all of psychology. And I was introduced to it when I did in one of my like early intro to psych subjects. And then I went on to do, Jordan Peterson has a really brilliant personality psychology course. It's like a 5-hour course and it's phenomenal. And with that, when you learn about the big 5 personality traits and you start to realize that I don't know if there's been anything that's had as a profound impact on the way that I view myself, others, and the world as learning about personality psychology and learning about personality differences. And a big part of what I wrestle with what you're saying about the labeling is the idea that when you look at someone's personality and you look at how someone's personality is made up, it's certainly easy to see how personality differences, particularly if you've got one person that's doing the diagnosing that's personally quite different to the person that's exhibiting the symptoms and the issues, how that can then lead to overdiagnosis, and that can lead to that overassignment of labels to what's relatively, let's call it normal behavior, or normally abnormal behaviors. So I agree in that respect. But the flip side to that then is, does having a label, and does that label and what that label can teach you. So for example, I've always struggled to focus, but I never knew until someone said you have ADHD that, hang on a second, I never connected the dots of actually that I needed to do specific things to help improve my focus. I had trouble focusing on one thing at a time. So I tried to multitask, and then I just end up all over the place and getting frustrated at myself and not completing the tasks on time. So that's where I see that labels can be beneficial if they're used productively. You're right. If someone just takes a label and they run with that and they think that that's kind of a sentence, because like I said, all these things exist on a spectrum and you can improve the symptoms along the way. If I didn't have that label, if I wasn't given that label of ADHD and I had to kind of just stab in the dark to figure out why, and not really even understand that I couldn't focus, then maybe I wouldn't have gone ahead and read a bunch of books on how to focus and figured out kind of processes within my work to make that happen. But I think it's like with everything, mate. It's how you use the label. It can be a death sentence or it can be a form of liberation. And I think it can be something that's very powerful in allowing people to help themselves or to get help if they use it the right way.